I always said I wasn't going to do any more, and that's true, because I'm not going to do any more. But that doesn't mean I'm unwilling to turn it over to Kathy to do more. Mm-hmm. I have story treatments of 7, 8, and 9 and a bunch of other movies, and obviously we have hundreds of books and comics and everything you could possibly imagine. So, you know, I sort of moved that treasure trove of stories and various things to Kathy, and you know, I have complete confidence that she's going to take them and make great movies. I'm doing this so that the films will have a longer life, and so that more fans and people can enjoy them into the future. It's a very big universe I've created, and there's a lot of stories that are sitting in there.
The main thing is to protect these characters, make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them, and that the universe of Star Wars continues to grow. As we work our way through these scripts, if we're sitting and saying, you know, I wonder if this character can do that, or does this make sense within the rules of Star Wars?
Under George Lucas, Star Wars was a household name synonymous with grand tales of heroism and adventure. From the original trilogy's beloved arc of Luke Skywalker's rise from humble farm boy to a hero that redeems his father and dismantles the Empire. The flawed prequel trilogy chronicling Anakin Skywalker's tragic fall and the destruction of the Galactic Republic. The Clone Wars series, and thousands of novels and comic books that added more details and offered deeper dives into the galaxy's lore. When Disney acquired Star Wars in 2012 for a hefty $4 billion, it sparked a fresh wave of anticipation and anxiety. From the moment Disney signed the deal, Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy, aligning with Disney CEO Bob Iger, sidelined George Lucas's original vision and dismantled the entire expanded universe. The new emphasis on injecting identity politics into the sequel trilogy's television shows and spin-off films that followed came across as a superficial addition rather than meaningful development or exploration of story and character. When backlash ensued, rather than engaging constructively with criticism, Disney were dismissive, often denigrating detractors. This controversy peaked when critique about the fall in quality in the writing and sidelining of canon were met with labels of toxicity, exacerbating the divide and transforming the once unifying cultural phenomenon into a contentious arena. It's safe to say that under the leadership of Kennedy and Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni, Star Wars has seen a transformation with the sequel trilogy and live-action shows that many find disheartening. The franchise, once a beacon of intricate storytelling and character development, became a breeding ground for live-action con jobs and Mary Sues. The sequel trilogy in particular felt like the starting pistol of Hollywood's current era of recycling beloved characters and storylines with a veneer of modernity, a tactic that was more about ticking boxes and pleasing shareholders than about enriching the storytelling. It's a grim picture of an industry where legacy characters are humiliated and replaced, not out of a genuine attempt to evolve the narrative organically, but to pander to new audiences with thinly veiled, overpowered proxies. Star Wars became a symbol of corporate overreach, a far cry from its origins as a groundbreaking blend of myth-making and cinematic magic. I have to point out the problem isn't diversity or lead females, as the recent success of the fun but also flawed Fallout series has demonstrated, but the missteps of shoehorning diversity without substance into narratives, leading to the assassination of beloved characters and the destruction of entire franchises. Hell, check out this reaction in the theater for the rise of Skywalker, with women furious at Rey's final line, not men.
Who are you?
Rey, nobody. That's
Right.
Not
Rey,
you.
who?
Oh God. No. No. Where the fuck is Ben?
Rey Skywalker.
The direction can only be characterized by a perceived disregard for the franchise's foundational themes and characters, leading to a Star Wars universe that many longtime fans scarcely recognize. This is epitomized with the newly released Disney Plus series The Acolyte, brought to us by Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, which is quite possibly the worst live-action Star Wars property made by the flailing production company, and the focus of our discussion today.
Got a bad feeling about this.
Don't let the media shills gaslighting audiences by saying The Acolyte isn't ruining Star Wars, but we are confuse you. With the second lowest IMDb score for a Star Wars show ever, and the lowest audience score on Rotten Tomatoes for a Star Wars property behind the Star Wars Holiday Special, It's clear that The Acolyte is one of the most disliked pieces of content released by Disney+. With the company dishing out cash like a high roller at a Vegas craps table, The Acolyte costs more than 18 times the entire budget of Godzilla Minus One. That's right, the show is burning through over $20 million per episode across its 8-episode spree. This is double the budget the Obi-Wan show had last year, and about as much as what was spent on Dune 2. The problem is, it's hard to tell where the money went. Consider that the first season of House of the Dragon, consisting of 10 one-hour episodes, cost the same as The Acolyte, yet provided more than double the content. Moreover, the quality of House of the Dragon was leaps and bounds ahead of The Acolyte. It's also important to note that both shows featured 2 lead women, yet House of the Dragon is universally beloved. Clearly, quality emerges as a decisive factor in the reception of these shows. Set at the end of the High Republic era, the show follows a Jedi Master who embarks on an investigation into a series of crimes. This quest leads him to cross paths with a former Padawan learner, uncovering sinister forces at play that may threaten to destabilize the Jedi Order. So far, The Acolyte has become yet another lightning rod for criticism of Disney's stewardship of Star Wars. This series ventures further away from the lore established by George Lucas, introducing elements like the Witch's Coven in Episode 3 that redefines the Force, or as the Witches call it, the Thread.
This is where the fun begins.
This marks a decisive departure from the Lucas-era Star Wars, almost signaling to longtime fans that it's time to disembark the train if they're not on board with a new direction. Since The Last Jedi, there's been a noticeable absence of serious discourse on the nature of the Force. With The Acolyte, the Force is back in the narrative spotlight but transformed, reflecting a shift in the franchise's thematic and demographic targeting. Historically perceived as a brand predominantly for men, the modern iteration under Disney's regime appears to pivot towards a female audience. This shift isn't problematic in itself, but it becomes contentious when it feels tethered to a complete overhaul of established narratives, lore, and character dynamics, rather than an expansion. This series attempts to blend crime thriller elements with the mystical lore of Star Wars, yet it stumbles in execution. The mysteries it tries to weave, like the identity of the assassin, are overly transparent, lacking the narrative depth or complexity that might engage a broader audience. Characters often state their motivations explicitly, leaving little room for the audience to engage through interpretation or to see motives revealed through actions. Combat scenes, designed to be visually compelling, end up feeling choreographed to the point of being more dance than battle. Thematically, the series attempts to draw parallels between the Jedi and contemporary issues of power and authority, but these themes are handled without the subtlety needed to evoke deeper reflection or insight, reducing potentially powerful analogies to simplistic comparisons. In essence, The Acolyte is symptomatic of a broader trend within Disney's Star Wars, a deconstruction of the elements that originally drew supporters to the franchise. For original fans, the series and the current trajectory of Star Wars feels like it's moving away from them, reshaping a once beloved universe into something unrecognizable, where the magic of the original lore is lost in translation under the new guard's vision. This transformation might cater to new audiences, but for many longtime fans, it feels like the Star Wars they grew up with is fading away. Disney and the creators of The Acolyte have marketed the series as a darker exploration of the Star Wars universe, a claim that has found support among critics who hail the show for its bold choices. Publications like Inverts have lauded it as an experimental, galvanizing standalone story that establishes a new caliber of what Star Wars TV can do. But they must be watching a different show.
But it's not like we're the vocal minority. The majority of people agree with this. Like if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, I mean, that's not particularly a great metric for seeing what people think. But look at the discrepancy between the critic score, which is at 91%, 71 critical reviews, and then you look at the audience score, it's at 21%. Wow. And that's thousands of people who voice their opinion. It's the same thing with IMDb. I think it has a 4.1 out of 10, and that's an industry website. So yeah, the majority of people agree with us. This is a poor show.
Hey guys, what's happening? Nihat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we're breaking down the first 3 episodes of The Acolyte.
Last night, a Jedi was murdered.
I sense this is only a small part, some sort of shift to tip the scales.
The Jedi justify their galactic dominance in the name of peace, but that peace is a lie.
This isn't about good or bad. This is about power. And who is allowed to use it?
Jedi are being hunted.
She was my student. I trained her. Let me be the one to bring her in.
It's time to face the past.
What are you?
Episode 1 opens on the planet Ueda, a refueling station, approximately 100 years before the Revenge of the Sith. It is a time of peace, and the Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic have prospered for centuries without war. That is, until a powerful few learn to use the Force in secret, one of whom is a lone assassin looking for revenge. We don't see this unfold organically, but are told all of this in text. Later revealed to be called May, the woman walks into a bar with a Jedi Master and Dara is stationed and says quite possibly one of the funniest first lines for a character ever written.
Attack me with all your strength.
And it's not only me that thinks so. Indara's crew are also busting with laughter. May's informed that the Jedi Master has no quarrel with her, and furthermore that the Jedi do not attack the unarmed, which is not true. Striking down an unarmed enemy in hatred, that is the path towards the dark side. But killing a combatant who was actively trying to harm you and others, that's fair game. With May attacking everyone in the bar, Indara is eventually forced to jump in and defend them. She effortlessly defeats her multiple times using the Force to either push her away or hold her in place. May then hurls daggers at her, and Indara deflects him using her lightsaber, before putting it away when told that a Jedi doesn't use their weapon unless they're prepared to kill. Which again is not true. The writers merely need to watch the prequels and original series to realize this does not make any sense. Hell, even in this very episode, one of the Jedi, called Yord, uses his lightsaber as a light source and not a weapon. So the notion that Jedi don't use their weapons unless they're prepared to kill seems to have been inserted simply to nerf Jedi Master Indara in this one scene. It's not until May starts throwing daggers at civilians, which distracts Indara, that she's killed with a dagger to the chest. This means that in Disney's Star Wars, the lightsaber, the once powerful weapon which could superheat and liquefy metal, is less powerful than a dagger. After all, Sabine Wren got stabbed with a lightsaber to the stomach and survived. Hell, even Reva got stabbed with a lightsaber, not once, but twice. So everyone can now survive a lightsaber attack except for Qui-Gon Jinn, who we thought was one of the most powerful Jedi Masters ever. Beyond this, Carrie-Anne Moss's Indara was a character I was interested in getting to know. What was she doing on Ueda? What kind of Jedi is she? Hell, what does she think of May? But apart from some flashbacks, she only made it 5 minutes into the series, and we know nothing else about her. We then cut to May's twin sister OSHA.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them.
OSHA is a mechanic working on an Nemoidian ship, along with her friend Philic, who mentions the crew were on Nar Shaddaa, the notorious moon of the planet Nal Hutta, homeworld of the Hutt species and a haven for pirates and outlaws, making it one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy, or a typical Tuesday for these lads. With their shield generator broken, OSHA goes out to fix what looks like a campfire in space. We've seen fires and explosions in space before, but this is a straight-up crackling flame. Distracted by a flashback of her youth and the sound of her sister May screaming, she fixes the damage in time to see a Jedi ship approach. We're then introduced to Jedi Knight Yord Fanda and his Padawan, Tacy Loa, who requests to speak to OSHA, explained as being a former Jedi now working as a mechanic. With the Nemoidians lying about them only using droids for outer ship repairs, Yord approaches, seemingly about to aggressively use the Force to interrogate the Nemoidian for information, before his counterpart reveals OSHA was indeed on the ship. Seems like the kind of aggressive interrogation a Sith would use, but I digress.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Despite hinting at having had a connection and friendship with OSHA, he's almost ready to draw his weapon when he sees her reach for a pip droid, catching OSHA off guard. Asked how long she'd been a mechanic, OSHA tells them that she'd been doing it for 6 years, ever since she left the Jedi Order. She believes a dangerous job was the only thing she could do since Jedi skills were not transferable to any other job. This is demonstrably false, as she could have worked as a bounty hunter, security specialist, pilot, diplomat, negotiator, or even a teacher. In fact, it could be argued that being a mechanic is not something that directly utilizes the unique skill set of a Jedi. The meticulous and technical nature of mechanical work doesn't fully capitalize on her combat abilities, force sensitivity, or diplomatic training. Then out of nowhere, Yord and his Padawan begin spewing out OSHA's backstory to the one person that doesn't need to know this information, OSHA.
You lost your entire family. Your mothers, your sister, your village all died in the fire before Master Soul brought you into the Jedi.
The purpose of this is of course to reveal to the audience that the Jedi Order were concerned about admitting her due to her older age and the fact that she was mourning, but it could have been done in a more organic way.
What was that? Well, I was just following your lead. No, you wasn't. You was being all heavy-handed with it, man. You gotta be subtle.
We're told that she lost her parents, sister, and entire village, and that her training was difficult, in addition to how she was feeling about it, something we could have deduced from the character's reaction.
Attachments to those we have lost are the most difficult to let go.
Asking them why they were here, they reveal that Master Indara was killed on Ueda, and the suspect matched her description. This accusation is strengthened when the barkeeper Indara had saved points to OSHA and says that she was indeed the killer. As a result, she's brought into custody and taken to a prisoner transport ship on its way to Coruscant, not by the Jedi, but by droids. This is merely a convenience to facilitate the next plot point, which involves her escape. We then head over to Coruscant, where Jedi Master Soul is training younglings, telling them to close their eyes and not trust them as they can deceive you. Interrupted by Master Venestra, he's informed that Master Indara was killed by his former Padawan OSHA.
I see I have underestimated your attachment to her.
Although arguing that she had no reason to harm the Jedi Master, especially considering they had saved her from a fire on Brenock, he's told that the evidence against her was strong. Venestra also highlights the importance of keeping the news under wraps to prevent their political enemies from taking advantage of the situation. This is an intriguing prospect, and you might be wondering what political enemies they might be referring to, but we never find out. Told by the other prisoners that they were planning to break out, OSHA watches as they disable the droids and leave using the escape pods. Deciding to save a prisoner that was left behind, she's betrayed by the man who takes the remaining pod, forcing her to strap in as the damaged ship crashed on a nearby planet. Here she has a vision of May and their fiery past, revealing she had indeed been alive all this time. Hearing that the ship carrying OSHA had crashed on the frozen planet of Karlak, Master Soul, his Padawan Jeki, and Yord make their way over to track her down. When asked about OSHA by Jeki, Soul reveals that she had a twin sister called May who had killed their entire family 16 years ago. When questioned if it could have been May they were actually after, he says that he had seen her die. Landing on the planet and in close pursuit of OSHA, Soul catches her from falling off the edge of a mountain. They're about to put her in cuffs when OSHA tells Soul that she didn't kill Indara and that May was alive, something he instantly believes.
I didn't know OSHA was a twin.
Do you think that...
No, May is dead. I saw her die.
May is alive.
I believe you.
The episode ends with May speaking to her master by a rocky beach on an undisclosed planet. The stranger explains that the Jedi live in a dream that they believe everyone shares. He then tells her that if you attack a Jedi with a weapon, you will fail, as steel or lasers are no threat to them, despite the beginning of this episode contradicting this, with May using steel to kill Master Indara. He then states that an Acolyte kills without a weapon, all while igniting a lightsaber, a prime example of irony if I ever saw one. Episode 2 begins by introducing us to a Jedi temple on the planet Olega. After bribing a kid to distract a security droid, May disables it and sneaks in. Despite the Jedi being able to sense disturbances in the Force, and particularly other Force wielders in close proximity to them, she sneaks right past a handful of Jedi and comes face to face with Master Torbin, who's practicing the bearish vow. It's the Jedi equivalent of going off the radar for atonement, but dialed up to intergalactic levels. Hilariously, although being instructed not to use weapons against a Jedi, May attempts to physically attack him and even uses her daggers, but is obstructed by his force shield. Damn, not only is she a bad person, but she's a horrible acolyte.
Attack me.
with all your strength.
As we pick back up with OSHA, she's just chilling with the Jedi that were charged with capturing her, helping Padawan Jackie with a piece of malfunctioning equipment.
People have been talking to me online about how Darth Vader is such a bad person. It's very clear, and it's very well established from those actions. But if you can't look and see that Anakin blowing up the Death Star possibly killed millions and millions of people.
What did he say?
Look! There they are! That's where the autopilot's taking off. Take this!
I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this right now.
Yeah, you should just shut up.
It's
You
just
should
like,
shut up. I love
that
you. You should
but that
shut
is
up.
the beauty of this story, and it's
the ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
As much as the actor playing him seems to know very little about Star Wars, Yord brings up a great point, protesting about them not restraining OSHA, considering she'd escaped before.
I must protest over not restraining the prisoner. She has escaped once before.
While he concedes that May might be alive, he notes that she didn't have the training to defeat a Jedi Master. Countering this, Sol points out that OSHA also hasn't trained in 6 years, which technically doesn't negate the training she already had, to which Yord suggests that the twins could still be working together.
They could be working together. Don't let fear affect your judgment.
Blindsided by his love for OSHA, Sol simply tells him not to let his fear affect his judgment, while it could be said that his judgment might also be impaired by his attachment to his former Padawan. Communicating with Venestra, Sol explains that he believed May was responsible for the murder. Venestra also agrees, informing him that someone matching OSHA's description had just broken into the temple on Olega, somewhat absolving OSHA for Indara's death. Sol is then ordered to investigate with OSHA's help, despite Yord's continued objections.
Would you like me to investigate or bring OSHA back to Coruscant?
Go investigate. Take OSHA with you.
On Olega, May enters an apothecary looking for Camille, an apparent associate of May and her master, who's taken over the shop after seemingly killing the original owner. Despite having been ordered to kill the Jedi without a weapon, May begs him to turn bunta leaves from her home planet of Brenock into a poison that she aimed to use against Master Torbin. We're also informed that there were 4 Jedi on Brenock on the night that her family had died, and after she dealt with Torbin, she aimed to kill at least one of the 2 left without a weapon.
Like every Jedi, he only thinks he's found peace. What he really needs is something only you can give him.
Reminiscing about her training and past, OSHA notes that the only way to explain the murder was for May to have survived the Brenock incident and gone out looking for revenge. Sol explains that he tried to save them both, and is reassured by OSHA that what happened that night was not his fault. Given her inability to let go of her past, OSHA tells him that she wasn't a very good student, but the humble Sol counters this by saying perhaps it was he that wasn't a good teacher. Welcomed into the Jedi Temple, the investigation team are informed about the break-in. Unfortunately, at the same time, May sneaks back in and confronts Torbin. She taunts him by offering him a choice to either confess his crime to the Jedi Council or take her poison and receive the forgiveness he sought. Now, you might be thinking that these Jedi she's hunting had recklessly slaughtered her people, her parents, and had tried to kill her, but we'll later find out that it was May to blame all along. There's actually nothing for Torbin to beg forgiveness for, yet he still apologizes and takes his own life, something unheard of for a Jedi to do. While the investigation team are led directly to Torbin by the Jedi that live in the temple, somehow OSHA gets there ahead of them by making a random right turn. This is merely to have her find the body and be suspected for committing the crime herself, but this is rendered pointless almost immediately, with Yord stepping in to say that his sights were on her the entire time and that she was innocent. Although he did follow her, he wasn't in the same room, and couldn't have seen that she didn't kill Torbin, and she was alone with the body for some time. It's just a pointless deviation and a waste of time. Nonetheless, with the poison being their only lead, the Jedi observe the apothecary, which happens to be directly across from the temple.
How convenient is that? Wow.
Despite this, they use binoculars to scout the place as if it were far away. I don't know if it's the location, the shot composition, or simply the fact that we don't see characters traveling any significant distances, but the universe and planets feel so small in this show. With the group noting that the shop owner was not their regular guy, Yord suggests that he confront the imposter and stun him if necessary to be brought in for questioning, but his idea is shot down immediately by Jackie, Sol's Padawan, who suggests that they send OSHA in disguise as May. I need to remind you that Yord is a Jedi Knight with a Padawan of his own, and despite being in a higher position than Jackie, is literally on her first mission. He's constantly derided by her.
Yod, put your clothes on.
Stun him, if need be. Then we bring him back to the ship for questioning.
Or we skip that and she just talks to him.
It would be one thing if Jackie's idea had worked, but Kamir immediately sees through their ruse, forcing all the Jedi to surround him before he spills the beans, admitting that he was her supplier.
A Jedi doesn't pull her weapon unless prepared to kill.
Hold on. Back away. Where's May?
He's forced to reveal that May will be coming back that evening. Despite him being complicit in the murder of Master Torbin, they don't apprehend Kamir and wait to spring a trap on May, and even tell him that they will consider letting him go with a warning if he cooperated. When OSHA was talking to him earlier and Kamir initially thought she was May, he let out a slip that he, her master, will be pleased.
You killed Torbin without the poison. He will be so pleased.
But when Saul asks him what he meant by this, Kamir lies and says that he doesn't know what's going on with her, other than the fact that she wanted to kill 4 Jedi. They were willing to use the Force to interrogate the mind of a criminal that wasn't involved in the Jedi murders.
Sublevel, bunk 23.
Beware.
Quiet your mind and tell me what happened to the young woman.
But they neglect to use it on Kamir, who again was complicit in the murder of Master Torbin, and possibly Master Indara as well. Speaking to Saul, OSHA requests that she confront her sister alone, revealing that May had killed her family and destroyed her life, which contradicts May's motivation for wanting revenge on the Jedi, and only adds more confusion to why Torbin had not only taken the Barish vow, hoping to find atonement for 15 years, but also why he killed himself if it was actually May that was responsible and not him and the others. Still, advising OSHA that she was angry and shouldn't be seeking revenge, Saul informs her that he will confront May, and tells her to have faith in him and May's ability to redeem herself. Finding May approaching the apothecary, Saul then engages in a fight with May, who tries to defeat him in hand-to-hand combat. The fight completely misunderstands the whole point of the Jedi, who aren't supposed to be hand-to-hand martial arts experts but proficient wielders of the Force and masters of lightsabers. Once again, realizing that she was outmatched by another Jedi Master, May tries to use her daggers and is thwarted. Surrounded by Saul, Yord, and Jackie hovering above in their ship, she manages to get away by using the Force to spray dust and sand in their faces. I thought that Saul told the younglings to close their eyes and not trust them, but instead use the Force to perceive their environment and each other.
Close your eyes. Your eyes can deceive you. We must not trust them.
What was the point of that line and lesson to the younglings when we see May elude 3 Jedi by springing dust and sand in their eyes?
So, Master Niat, why don't you pick it up from there? Because you are a writer, you put a lot of time into your craft. What would you say to Jack?
Yeah, so on that note of the actors being quite good, I agree. Like, I like the actress who plays Jackie, the actor who plays Saul. Despite the script, despite being limited by the script, they're actually turning out like quite decent performances. But the problem is, the dialogue is redundant. It's very exposition heavy. They're also saying a lot of nonsensical things. The Jedi aren't really behaving as a Jedi should. There's a lot of plot contrivances that enable like May to escape. There's no way that she would have been able to beat 3, well, not just Indara in episode 1 and Master Torbin, who basically commits suicide, which is completely un-Jedi-like, but she also manages to escape from Saul, Yord, and Jackie, who's in a freaking ship, which should have been able to detect her by using dust. Like, so there's a lot of broken mechanics in this show. I do appreciate some things about it, but for the most part, it's just a disappointment. Like, yeah, it's hard to sink your teeth into it. In terms of visuals, I think that the CGI and set designs vary significantly from being mediocre to fairly impressive. But I think the biggest problem with the show is just there's a massive lack of consistency, whether it's in the dialogue, in the style, the aesthetic, the setting, in the characters. Yeah, it's just very inconsistent. It's a little bit all over the place.
As we cut to OSHA, she finds May stealing a speeder, but when she has the opportunity to stun her, she lets her get away. As we skip to the next day, May's able to find Kamir outside the apothecary, which again is directly across the road from the Jedi Temple, and speak to him, without interference from Saul, Checky, Yord, or the other Jedi that are looking for her. This just reminded me that they should have taken Kimir in for questioning, but they let him go, which was stupid, merely so we can tell May that they need to go to Kofar. What the hell is Kofar, you might ask? Well, apparently it's
a relaxing forest retreat in the Outer Rim, where the Wookiee Jedi lives.
We then cut to that very planet where scavengers speaking Huttese are scared away by Kelnaka himself. What is Kelnaka doing here? Well, we later learn that he's been stationed there by the Jedi Council, but like Master Inara on New Ada, we don't know why or what his function on Kofar is beyond needing to be alone so that May could confront him.
And what a weird introduction this is for the Wookiees. Two random scavengers who we've never seen before arrive in Kofar. He scares them away. That's the end of the episode. Like,
End of episode, folks. Yep. That's your lot.
She gives herself about 4 different credits here.
Yeah, she does.
It's like The Little House on the Prairie, directed by Michael Landon, written by Nicholas Theme Tune, exactly, by Michael Landon, etc.
Leslie Headland giving herself all these credits. It's very much like Tommy Wiseau. I don't know if you guys have seen The Room.
Yes.
It's like written, directed, produced, costumes by Tommy Wiseau.
Episode 3 begins 16 years earlier on the lush planet of Brenock and breaks Star Wars forever. Here we meet a young OSHA and May, briefly using their Force powers to contain a butterfly before letting it go. While OSHA's use of the Force is brief and driven by curiosity, May appears to harbour a malevolence and delight in inflicting cruelty on the creature until being told to let it go. The pair are talking beside a bunta tree, and it's revealed that they're not supposed to be this far away from their home. There's an evident divide between the twins, with OSHA often running away, much to the disappointment of May, who wants to do everything with her, and May doing things with the Force that worry OSHA. Today is the eve of their ascension, and OSHA has some trepidation about going through with the ceremony. The two are discovered by one of their parents, Mother Coral, who yells at them for being outside the fortress walls, and as she takes them back inside, Sol is seen watching from the distance, indicating that he was aware of the young Force users. The pair essentially live in a coven among witches that practice a dark form of sorcery, and Coral is concerned that the kids are at risk of being found by outside forces, namely the Jedi.
Did anyone see them? Any sign of the visiting Jedi?
None. Our scouts think they've moved their ship inland.
Their other mother, who's the head of the coven and called Anastasia, teaches them that all living things are connected by a thread woven through all existence. Called the Force by others, she believes this same thread is not a power that can be wielded. She then contradicts herself by saying the thread can be pulled to change everything, and that it is tied to their destiny, binding them to others. As Anastasia displays her powers in a demonstration meant to instruct the girls, the twins fight amongst each other, and it's evident that May is the more formidable Force user.
Your enemies will not warn you before they attack!
OSHA doesn't hesitate to inform her mother that she's worried about the Ascension, expressing doubts about whether she wanted to be a witch at all. Unlike May, who has a possessive view of their relationship and the pair needing to be together in this, OSHA is an independent thinker, curious about life outside their walls. During a weird ceremony that is hilarious to watch.
The power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
Mother Anastasia describes how the Coven were hunted and on the brink of extinction when they found Brenock, where they were granted the gift of life in the form of the twins. In Revenge of the Sith, Chancellor Palpatine told Anakin about Darth Plagueis the Wise. Palpatine recounted that Plagueis had the power to influence the midi-chlorians to create life, and it's implied that Sidious, having learnt this ability from his master, had a hand in Anakin's conception.
He could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life.
But the Force cannot be bent to someone's will, and it responded to create balance. Anakin Skywalker himself was the Force's response. His life and actions throughout the Star Wars saga are characterized by significant conflict and turmoil as he struggled with both the light side and the dark side of the Force, a representation of the tug-of-war between Darth Sidious and the Force itself. Ultimately, Anakin fulfilled the prophecy by destroying Emperor Palpatine and consequently the Sith, albeit at the cost of his own life, thus restoring balance to the Force. Manipulating the Force like Darth Sidious would do so nearly a century later, Anastasia had essentially created the twins and Coral carried them. Thus, Disney's Star Wars not only challenges the notion of Palpatine as the first to use the Force to conceive a child, and also undermines Darth Vader's significant sacrifice, as revealed by the retcon in The Rise of Skywalker that shows Palpatine survived, but the lore on how the Force works and Vader's distinct status as the first prophesized chosen one conceived by the Force to bring balance is now also broken. May undergoes ascension and receives the Mark of the Coven, but the Jedi arrive in time to interrupt OSHA's ceremony. Despite the witches attempting to hide the girls and initial hostilities, Jedi Masters Indara, Sol, Kelnaka, and Indara's Padawan Torbin arrive and claim that they mean the Coven no harm, but are concerned that they're training children.
They want to take our children!
The Jedi do not take children.
Hold your tongue or I cut it out for you!
I think you would make a very good Jedi, OSHA. Would you like to be tested and see if you could become one?
With OSHA willingly stepping out along with her sister, Sol hands her his lightsaber and asks if she wanted to be tested to see if she could become a Jedi. Despite the witches then temporarily possessing Torbin, after being told the Jedi have the right under the Republic to test for potential Padawans, and OSHA willingly saying that she wanted to take the test, Anastasia concedes. Coral is not just concerned about them taking the girls, but about the Jedi discovering how they were created. To solve the problem, the Coven decide to let the girls take the test, but inform them to intentionally fail. While May deliberately fails the test, after instruction from Sol, OSHA passes. Much to the girls' surprise, Anastasia ultimately agrees to take her wish under consideration.
Fear should not make this decision, OSHA. You should.
I love you, Mama.
I love you. Now go.
But before the Coven come to a decision, the wrathful May locks her sister in their room and sets fire to her journal. In an instant, May literally destroys her sister's dream of a life away from Brenock. This starts a flame that not only somehow burns the stone fortress, which is impossible, but the fire also ends up killing the entire Coven, leaving only the twins as survivors. As the fortress begins to crumble, OSHA and May fall, and despite having Force abilities that could have saved them both, May plummets to what is assumed to be her death, while OSHA is saved by Sol catching her by the hand. Waking up on the Jedi ship, OSHA is informed that her entire family were killed by May, who also perished in the flames, and that Sol will take her in as his Padawan learner. But of course, as we cut to the Buntu tree from earlier, we find May standing there, anguished by her actions. Not only does the episode contradict May's quest for revenge, with us initially believing the Jedi were directly involved with the destruction of her home, only to learn it was May all along, meaning there was no reason for Torbin to take his life, as there was nothing for him to feel guilty about, but it also breaks the canon of the original and prequel trilogy, completely undermining Anakin's character arc. In an article by Forbes titled The Acolyte, Episode 3 Controversy Explained, senior contributor Danny DePlacido acknowledges it has stirred up a veritable force storm among the fanbase. The crux of the controversy, the twins' creation, which smells like a Sith science experiment, challenging the uniqueness of Anakin's backstory as the Chosen One. Add to this the depiction of the Jedi as less space monk and more space menace, and you've got the recipe for canonical heresy, which Danny adds is according to some fans. But it's not just some fans, but the majority of the fan base who believe this. The problem is that the series is rewriting too much, diminishing the lore around pivotal characters like Anakin, and turning the Jedi into outright nefarious characters. After effectively blaming the fans for being toxic and resistant to progression, Danny goes on to say that Star Wars has never shied away from retconning its way out of narrative corners by highlighting Darth Vader's paternity reveal and Boba Fett's miraculous escape from the Sarlacc. What he fails to understand is that Vader revealing he's Luke's father was not a retcon, but simply an unexpected plot twist that was woven into the existing storyline. While Boba Fett's escape from the Sarlacc doesn't break the original or prequel trilogy in the same way that the twins' creation does, by undermining Anakin's importance in those 6 films as the prophesied Chosen One, who was meant to bring balance to the Force. He then says the most baffling thing I've ever read, that in Star Wars, canon is just a suggestion. This idea is ludicrous, considering the extensive lore and meticulous continuity that fans have followed for decades.
No. Reality can be whatever I want.
If canon were merely a suggestion, it would undermine the integrity of the entire narrative structure that has been built turning what should be a richly detailed universe into a chaotic free-for-all where any character's fate and the foundational laws of the universe can be whimsically altered or disregarded. Framed as a serialized mystery thriller within the Star Wars universe, The Acolyte falls short of its promising premise due to several critical flaws in its execution. The storytelling is stiff and mechanical, the characters lack depth and inspiration, and the overall presentation fails to capture the quintessential Star Wars essence. Showrunner Leslie Headland's narrative ambitions appear scattered and unfocused, resulting in a series plagued by poor plotting and logical inconsistencies. The dialogue is often nonsensical, self-contradictory, repetitive, and feels forced and uninspired, contributing to a pervasive lack of energy and engagement across the episodes.
Master Niat, you're a writer, and it's good to talk to a fellow writer. Now, I'll tell you what this reminds me of, Master Niat, and you maybe tell me if I'm right or wrong. This reminds me of maybe you do a first draft, and it's a very rough first draft. And then when you're doing either the self-edit or if you're bold enough to whiz it past a professional editor, they'll pick up on shit like this, as in, you've already told the reader that, you don't need to repeat it. Somehow this makes it into the final fucking version of this. I mean, what's going on? Why are we being spoon-fed shit multiple times in a 30-minute episode?
I don't know if the writers have been rushed or if they're just fucking lazy, because just even for my YouTube videos, when I'm writing a script, I go through maybe 10 different versions as I'm reviewing them. And with my novel, like that I'm just about to finish, I've gone through maybe 25 different drafts, and I've had the publishing editor review them twice, and I've gone back, and there's so much work that goes into refining a script and making sure that you're not wasting the reader's time or the viewer's time in the case of like a film script or a TV show. This is just so fucking lazy. Like, I don't understand what's going on here. Part of the problem is that these things get greenlit and an entire season is made. Back in the days of network television, you'd have a pilot where a show would be written, a few different actors would be cast, it wouldn't be locked in, and the network would decide whether they want to spend more money into it. And so the impetus was on the writers, the producers, the director, the cinematographer, the composer to do, and the actors to do as good a job as they could to ensure that they got the first season greenlit. No money would be wasted on shit like this.
Are modern day, in inverted commas, modern day writers just not as good as they used to be back in the day? Blame people who educated them then.
No, well, they haven't been educated. That's the problem. So before the industry, I was alluding to this when I was discussing how network television would operate. It was a system of meritocracy. The best shows, the best scripts, the best directors would thrive. But now we're in an industry where if you fit a certain description, if you check a particular box, you're just given the role. And that's why all of this is so shit.
Central to the cast, Lee Jung-jae, known for his compelling role in Squid Game, delivers a noteworthy performance as Sol, bringing a degree of gravitas, stoicism, and humanity to the series. Considering he literally learnt English for the role, it's amazing how he outclasses the rest of the actors around him in every scene. Amandla Stenberg's dual role as twins OSHA and May struggles with differentiation. Both characters are portrayed too similarly, lacking distinct personalities that could make them more compelling and memorable. Stenberg's May, intended to be imposing, also fails to evoke the necessary intensity or fear, partly due to the actor's performance and partly due to the limitations of the script. Supporting characters, such as Charlie Barnett's Jedi Knight Yord, also suffer from underdevelopment and incongruity with established Star Wars lore. Yord's portrayal as an angst-ridden, error-prone Jedi clashes with the traditional stoic and competent image of Jedi Knights, highlighting a mismatch between how a Jedi is supposed to behave and his execution.
Jedi Knight. Jedi dumbass.
Despite a limited screen time, Carrie-Anne Moss significantly enhances the Acolyte with a standout performance in the opening fight scene. However, her and Lee's efforts alone cannot overshadow the broader issues plaguing the series, particularly the problematic portrayal of the Jedi. Set in the High Republic era, a time when Jedi were known for their power and wisdom, the series depicts them in a surprisingly inept manner. These choices, along with the underwhelming characterizations and simplistic plot points, suggest a misunderstanding of what has historically resonated with the Star Wars universe. The show introduces some visually compelling elements with its ship and creature designs, but these are sparse highlights in an otherwise unrecognizable landscape. With half of the series already faltering, there's skepticism among the potential for a turnaround in the remaining episodes. The core issues, stemming from the show's vision and execution, suggest that the Acolyte will struggle to attract new followers and will further alienate longtime fans. The first few episodes of the series feature numerous fight scenes that nod to the Matrix series, yet they fail to capture the electrifying essence of classic duels seen in the original and prequel trilogies. The once thrilling ignition of a lightsaber now feels as mundane as flipping on a table lamp, leaving much to be desired for fans eager for the saga's signature lightsaber battles. Showrunner and writer Leslie Headland draws heavily from Chinese martial arts cinema for the series' choreography. She integrates a rationale for avoiding blasters and traditional Jedi weapons, opting instead for hand-to-hand combat that visually recalls films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. While stylistically interesting, the choice introduces logical inconsistencies, particularly when considering the combat capabilities of Jedi, who can immobilize opponents with the Force, raising the question of the practicality of close-quarters combat in such contexts. From the episodes available, the outlook for the remainder appears bleak. The series attempts to innovate by transforming Star Wars into a space-bound murder mystery featuring Jedi as detectives. As I said earlier, this concept initially piqued my interest. However, the execution quickly dampened my enthusiasm as early as the first episode, which lacked the necessary mystery and suspense to be captivating. It struggles to effectively orchestrate a police procedural within the Star Wars universe. The investigative plot is illogical, with Jedi detectives portrayed as incompetent and overlooking obvious clues and pursuing irrelevant questions. This is compounded by plot holes in character actions driven by unconvincing motivations. Furthermore, the dialogue is burdened with tedious exposition and cliches, delivered by the cast with a lack of genuine emotion, rendering their performances stilted and pretentious. Overall, The Acolyte struggles to deliver on its initial promise, hampered by subpar writing and a lack of coherent vision. Despite a handful of strong performances, the series doesn't adequately develop its characters or its central mystery, leaving much to be desired in both narrative depth and entertainment value. The show's failure to align with the thematic and aesthetic standards of the Star Wars franchise marks a significant missed opportunity to expand the universe in a meaningful way. Ultimately, Kennedy's decisions have turned a cultural titan into a shadow of its former glory. Despite the enormous potential of Disney's acquisition, the approach, marked by shifting directorial visions, a politicized agenda, and a contentious relationship with the fanbase, has led many to view her tenure as a textbook example of mismanagement. Under her watch, Star Wars has not just stumbled, it has fallen, and the responsibility, as much as it is shared, rests significantly on her shoulders. As head of Lucasfilm, her legacy will forever be intertwined with the decline of one of the most beloved sagas in cinematic history.
Go!